today, let's walk through the steps of how to make an easy pocket square in 2 different ways. Welcome, I do sewing and DIY related content, and today we are talking about pocket squares and easy ways to make them. So I'm going to be starting off using this actually an old scarf that I had, so I'm going to be giving it new life, turning it into a pocket square. So most pocket squares range between 10 to 17 inches, with bigger pocket squares being more of that silky material. So this is actually a cotton, so I want to shrink this down. I'm going to be cutting this out so that it is 14 inches by 14 inches. So that's going to be my first step, is just trimming this up so that it is the correct measurement. That measurement really is a matter of personal preference though, so you could make this however large or small you wanted, depending on the type of fabric you were using, as well as who you're making this for and if they have their own personal preference. So now I'm just going to go through, trim this so that it is 14 by 14 inches, and now it is time to start working on that little narrow rolled hem all the way along the edge of our pocket square. So I'm going to be doing 2 1/4 inch hems, so to get that exact nice and neat 1/4 inch hem, I'm going to take a ruler and when I fold over my fabric, make sure that it is meeting that 1/4 inch mark. I also do have a 1/4 inch mark on the board that I'm using that makes it very easy for me to just measure against that. So I'm going to go through and do this nice 1/4 inch hem all the way around, pinning this in place first. So I'm not actually going to sew this, I'm just going to go through and fold over my fabric by a 1/4 inch. The one area that I would say to be cautious of is the corners. You want to make sure that you're getting the full raw edge kind of covered in that corner. So just take your time with those to really make sure you're pinning it up so that the raw edge is being covered. Once I have this done one time, I am now going to refold all of this again. So I'm going to be folding this all as that nice 1/4 inch fold. Now if you wanted to, you could definitely press all of this out first and then do that second 1/4 inch fold. It really depends on the type of fabric you are using. Once everything is nice and neat and folded up, I'm just going to go ahead and start sewing this. So it's going to be a straight stitch, nothing really fancy on here, my regular presser foot, and I'm just going to begin sewing this up very slowly, being sure that I'm backstitching at the beginning and end to secure that seam. Now the edges are where things get interesting with a pocket square as far as when it comes to actually finishing them off. So once I have this full edge sewn up, there's a couple different ways you can do this. You could pivot at the corners, so where you put your needle down into your fabric and then pivot your fabric 90 degrees and then continue sewing on. With this, I did find that the corners can kind of get a little stuck, so you sort of have to play with your presser foot, trying to get it so that it can get over that little hump. It really kind of depends on what you like or what you don't like. If you do go with this option though, it just takes a little bit of time and a little bit of kind of playing with your fabric to get it through. In addition, you could just stop at each edge, so just completely stop sewing, be sure you're backstitching, and then you're going to get a tail. And then I've seen people talk about when they start up at each corner, they then pull that tail of thread in the back, and that can kind of help give you some leverage to push that corner through. I also sort of struggled with this. I didn't find it the most easy or useful way to do it, but that's definitely another option to try. Now the third option that I will say is if you have some sort of plastic or if you have cardboard or a really big piece of fabric that you can fold, and if you put this underneath your presser foot in the back, this will help keep your presser foot up and it's going to allow you to sew directly through that edge without any problems on that corner. This was the easiest method for me and I found that it worked really well. So I'd highly recommend that if you are struggling with getting over those corners for the pocket square. Now there is another option that you can do that doesn't actually really require that much prep work at the beginning, and that is using a rolled hem foot. So I know that these can be a little controversial, there's a lot of different opinions on them, but for my rolled hem foot, I'm going to be setting this up as a straight stitch, being sure that it is directly in the middle for where that opening is, and you can see you get a really nice and clean rolled hem effect. So for this, you're going to be taking your fabric that has already been pre-cut to whatever dimensions you would like especially we talked about earlier, and then you're just going to be folding this ever so slightly so that it fits within. There's this little opening on that rolled hem foot itself, and you just want it to fit within there. So as you can see, I'm really sort of prepping this beforehand by folding it over, doing some of that pressing with my fingers, and then I'm just going to be shimmying it into that little rolled hem portion of the presser foot. So this does take some work, and really the best way to describe it is like shaking it into the presser foot, and then you will be putting the presser foot down, and as you can see, it has that rolled effect, and then you can just begin sewing. So with this presser foot, you do need to really be working with your fabric as you go through, making sure it continues having that rolled effect. It's not just kind of like a one and done thing, but this can give you a really, really neat and clean effect for a hem without doing all the work beforehand. You're kind of doing it more as it's sewing along. So this is just another option for how you could do that rolled hem, especially if you wanted like that very, very narrow rolled hem that sometimes you see on pocket squares already. So this is just a second way to do it. It really depends on what you're interested in. Now, the hardest part for me about this was the corners, especially because you can't really start too far up for how the rolled hem foot works. So what I ended up doing was making it so that the corners were not actually sewn, and I was leaving that as it was. And then I went back through and I used a regular presser foot and just took a very narrow hem for where that corner would be. So this was just another way to do it. So as you can see, that corner is now sewn up there, and all I had to do was then use my regular presser foot, just take that tiny little inch and a half seam, and then I was going to go through later and actually trim up all of these little threads that I had listed. End of what I did was I just trimmed and knotted all of those threads together so that it would be nice and secure, but I also didn't have to worry too much about the back stitching taking away from the design. So as you can see here, I have all of those threads. So I just need to go through and trim them up so that it looks like this corner. This corner turned out so nicely, and that's what I'm just going to be doing for the rest. So going through, making sure that everything is nice and clean, trimming off any of those extra threads and knotting them. So here's what the completed pocket square can look like. These were so easy and fun to do. I think this would be great gifts, especially for any type of big event for, for guys. This could be for weddings, graduations, birthdays. They're really easy and really quick. If you like this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know what you want to see next. Thanks for watching.